Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Hawkeye Rides live stream. We're going to be touching bases on questions and answers like we do every Saturday. We are considering changing the time and possibly the date of the questions and answers. So let us know in the comments what your thoughts are or what time or date that you would prefer. Also going to have the memberships rolling out hopefully in the next couple of days. We're just finishing up a few tweaks with that. And touching bases on what we did this week, we went to Jeep, Ram, Dodge, Chrysler. We reviewed the new Ram once again, as well as the Jeep Grand Cherokee L. And this week we have scheduled for Acura, BMW, Mini, Subaru. We're going to be going back to Porsche, Maserati, and some of the higher end vehicles, as well as Mercedes and Audi, to bring more vehicles to the channel, more performance vehicles. We have the RS7 that's going to be coming out shortly. We also have the SQ8 and the SQ7. We have a comparison between the two of those, as well as a comparison between the XM and the X5M competition. That one was a pretty fun review. And I like to tell everybody good morning. Any questions and answers, please feel free to put them onto the chat so that way we can dive into the Q&As. This week, it's been very cold, so some of the reviews, you can also see I'm wearing a long sleeve yet again, is going to have different clothing. We're going to start trying to do different reviews, like more of nighttime if we can. Some of the dealerships have altered their hours, so our team hasn't been able to give us the ability to do vehicles so much at nighttime yet, but we are going to be bringing some of those to the channel. When's the next Range Rover video? That one should be coming out. I actually have a list of the vehicles. Give me a second. The Range Rover, I actually had one scheduled, but we postponed it, so I believe it'll be in a couple of weeks or so. I have a little list of all the vehicles that we've done. Porsche, that one's going to be coming out. I have the Macan EV probably in about 2 weeks or so. We had we reviewed that one, as well as the new Panamera, which we already have that one out. Do you know anyone with the Range Rover? Yes, I do. I have some business colleagues that own them. They went from the Range Rover Sport, and they had actually two of them they bought brand new. Now they're currently driving a Porsche. Yeah, Range Rovers, they're very luxurious, cool looking cars. I do like them. I would probably purchase one either new or slightly used, so that way I get the longer warranty with them. Great vehicles in the sense of styling and the drive as well. The interior is great. Did they like it? They did like the Range Rover Sport. That's why they had two of them, but they just wanted more performance, which now they basically, I mean, you can get the SV, which is the BMW engine, in the Range Rover Sport, and it's crazy speed. They didn't have any problems because they got rid of the vehicle within 2 to 3 years, so it's still under full warranty, and they never really exchanged any problems or concern with their Range Rover Sport. They had the SE, Dynamic SE version, so it was kind of like the mid-grade. I believe the MSRP on those are about $101,000. Range Rover used to do engines with BMW before, and then they changed a few years back into their own engines, and then now they're doing it yet again, sourcing with BMW. It's really less expensive to work together with other automotive industries and use their components instead of developing all new engines and then having problems. As you see with Toyota, they're having a ton of problems with some of their new developments. I don't recommend getting vehicles over 35,000 miles pre-owned, especially when they're luxury. Getting a vehicle that has 60,000 miles, you are getting into somewhat of a headache. 50,000, I mean, as long as you have a few $1,000 all the time in your bank account, then it's okay. But once you start going luxury, it does get very expensive. I was actually going to talk and touch bases about Nissan with their struggle with the 12 to maybe 13, 14 months before they go out of business. I kind of was shocked. I was actually at Nissan 3 weeks ago. Our team had some 25 models, but they were not at the dealership at the time, so we had to postpone and reschedule, which I was planning on going this week. And then all the news came up literally, I think, a few days afterwards, and I thought, wow, that's just crazy because I own an Infinity, which, just to touch bases with my Infinity situation, we are trying to do a buyback on it, which now Infinity is, they offered me $2,500 to keep the car. And I said, well, give us a little bit more money and then we'll consider it. But now with this, kind of is scary when you think about it, because you buy a vehicle and then the company goes belly up, you will lose resale value on your vehicle. I'm not surprised at some of the cars. Yeah, all the vehicles are getting very expensive. I mean, when I go to the dealerships now, I'm looking at the MSRP and I'm just kind of shocked with some of the increase, because they're not really increasing in other than tech and safety stuff, which I understand is expensive because all that costs a lot of money to develop. But in the same aspect, when you're just carrying over the same engine, where you're sharing platforms, and most of the interior aesthetics are starting to suffer with putting cheaper materials sometimes on these base vehicles, it's hard to grasp that everything is $35,000 or more. So Infinity is Nissan, so yes, they are struggling. Last month we were looking just for the heck of it. I believe one dealership, well, actually in the US, they sold like 25 vehicles or 24 vehicles. I think that was the correct number. I might be off by a few, but it wasn't very many. And that just shows you the amount of struggle that Nissan Infinity is doing. The QX80 is awesome, but the pricing, I feel like even when I go to my team, it's worth it. It's just, I mean, when you're over $100,000, there's a lot of vehicles that come into class. I would buy it if it was less money, but being $100 to $120,000 to get a fully loaded autograph, I just feel like it's a lot of money for Infinity, because they took a huge jump. That vehicle would touch at $100,000 fully loaded, and typically you get it for about $95,000. Range Rover, I don't necessarily feel they're overpriced, because when we did the autobiography a couple weeks ago, it was about $110,000. I want to say 120 max. So the autobiography used to be about $180,000 to get comparable features. So I feel like Tata Motors has kind of priced it pretty decent for all the amenities that you're getting, and it's a Range Rover Sport. As for Porsche, because Volkswagen owns so much, I don't really understand their pricing scheme. It's kind of like BMW with Mini, because you're only a few grand off. If you're at Mini, you might as well go to BMW. And it's almost like that when you go from Audi to Porsche. But when you're going from Audi to Porsche, you're also getting a lot better service, but then you're losing performance at the pricing that you're at. I would say to get maybe a 2022 Range Rover Sport. 2021, you're going to start having a lot higher miles, but you also have a little bit more warranty going that route. I do like the Urus. They are awesome cars. We actually are considering to purchase one, but right now pricing and the services of the vehicles, that's the issue when you're going into Lamborghini. It's just a lot. And ultimately, when you go into the dealerships, I was working with a new team trying to develop a relationship in Sarasota, and the team was just very rude. So we actually just left and we're sourcing some other dealerships. Yes, Volkswagen owns them as well. Well, anytime you get certified, when you go into like exotic vehicles, you only get usually 12 months or unlimited miles, but 12 months. So that's pretty much what you get with that. When we went to Sarasota a couple of weeks ago, we were getting ready to source for doing a review on the Urus. And like I just said, the dealership was just very rude. So our team left and we said we're going to look somewhere else. The closest dealership, that was actually almost 2 hours from where we live. So this one is, I think the next one is going to be over 2 hours. So we're going to try to start going out a little bit further. It's just the problem with going 2 to 4 hours. You also have to drive back. What's the cheapest? For a Urus, the least expensive that you're going to get probably is going to be about 175,000, and it's going to have high miles. I would say to get the RSQ8 if you're at that point, because you can get a brand new one for about 150, 160,000, and it's just more or less a detuned Urus engine, which you know that you can tune it and get more horsepower because you're only losing maybe 60-ish horsepower from it, and a 0 to 60 is maybe like 2 or 3 tenths of a second, so it's not a huge difference. I mean, any vehicle. So the question was, does Urus last a long time? It really depends on the driver and owner. As you own a vehicle, as long as you're maintaining it and you're driving it, you're not just leaving it sitting outside, so belts and plastics dry rot, it should last a while, but you will have expensive service upkeeping because some of the components on these vehicles, they run a lot of money, and especially like if a light goes bad, it's not going to be $100. You're going to spend thousands of dollars. The If the Urus is a little bit wider and longer because of the way the aesthetics kind of come outwards. I have the new CT5 review. I believe that's coming out in the next week or two, where they refresh the interior. That is a awesome vehicle. So I was really impressed to see that they fixed it up. So you have the new screen and the new center cluster. The exterior, they did some tweaks as well with the lighting and the wheels. I think the CT5, especially pricing, it is an awesome vehicle, Neil. Does the Urus base worth it? The problem with getting a base Lamborghini is a lot of people will look at that as more of a rental car or a service loaner. So you will lose value in it comparing to one that is more preferable in the sense of color and specs in the interior. Did you see the electric Urus? I have not seen any in the area yet for the electric Urus. Right now, like I said, we're working on different teams. It's just also with the holidays and the new year coming, it's been a little bit more chaotic with making and getting new teams out there. So we just landed another 4 or 5 different dealers in the area, which was about 2 hours away from where we live as well. So we are trying to bring a lot more vehicles to the channel, which, as you see, we post quite a bit every week. They do loaners. So Lamborghini does loaners. The difference with their loaners is you may not get a Lamborghini. You might get something a little bit less in value. The CT5, they have the one that we did, I believe, was a 2.0 liter. So it was the base. We did the sport. They changed the way. This is for the CT5 engine. They also changed the trims. So now you have, I believe it was 2 trims, and then you got the V Series and the V Sport, or the V Series and the V, which they didn't have any of those at the moment. Weight of the car, enough. Actually, the 2.0 liter was a pretty good throttle response. I even on the review do it, I think around 15, 20 miles per hour to show some lag. And it was a pretty smooth drive either way. It didn't feel heavy on the pedal, and even braking, the car itself isn't that heavy. So I think overall Cadillac is going the right direction with that. Kind of the same thing with all their vehicles. They're putting that large screen, but it kind of works because the times we're in, everybody's wanting these large screens. So it cleans up the dashboard a little bit more so. The only thing I dislike about the new CT5 is they didn't really change a lot of things, like for the backseat occupants, and the system itself can have some glitch, but for the most part, it is pretty quick and seamless. Yes, the Lamborghini Urus has ambient lighting. Like, uh, I think any vehicle you buy should be an everyday vehicle, unless you're mega rich and it's like changing shoes for you every day. You have a different car, because, like I've said before in different live streams, I own a Maserati and I use it daily. So when I'm driving the 2-3 hours to a dealership, I'm actually driving that vehicle and I haven't had any problems with it. I would order higher end vehicles, yes. I would not. I mean, depending on specs, or I would get it pre-owned like a year or two, because once you start going high-end vehicles like that, the warranty is a lot different. The maintenance is going to be a lot more expensive than Audi and Porsche. Porsche, Lamborghini, those are going to be a lot more money in service. And even when you get into Bentley, you're talking about 15 to 2,000 and maybe $3,000 a year, depending on the model that you pick. Audi is kind of the sweet spot because you could also get Audi Care, which covers 4 years maintenance. You pay it when you buy the vehicle new, or some dealers will offer you different packages similar to it used. It's not the same, but it still will be less expensive. Yeah, Audi and Porsche, is it because it's, yes, any high performance vehicle, think of like F1, right? When you watch F1 racing, if you haven't watched it, I'm sure you're still familiar with it. It's expensive. The tires, the suspension, the transmission, the engine. So when you're getting, like for instance, an AMG Mercedes and they're using technology from F1, just think and know that the service is going to be expensive. All new car warranties cover the same thing. Now, the difference is as you start getting higher in, some of the vehicle companies become a little bit more harder to cover the warranties, meaning like if you break a cup holder, like it has a flap where you push it and it closes and then it opens up for a cup holder. So what happens with that if it breaks? I know this from experience because we've had a Porsche in our family. They denied the claim multiple times. It was brand new vehicle. And then ultimately what happened is the family member had to lie to him and say that the service person broke it and they went to a different Porsche dealer and they fixed it. So you have to, I hate to say, kind of jump between the two, but then even I owned a Cadillac and I had multiple issues with little things breaking. And as the service was getting, as I owned the vehicle longer, the service was getting less. At the beginning, they would fix everything quickly, but then towards the end, they didn't even want to fix things. They were saying, "Oh, that's your fault. That's wear and tear," even though it's under full bumper to bumper, which means the whole car is covered and should be taken care of. Yeah, I was a little bit disappointed. That was actually why I traded my Cadillac. The service was awesome at the beginning. We had an XLR, so that was a two-seat hardtop convertible, the first of its kind. It replaced the Avante, in which I feel like it came out too soon. But yes, it was Ed Morris Cadillac. I bought it from Ed Morris, and then we bought another two Cadillacs as well as a Alfa Romeo from that dealership. Ultimately, I don't even have a relationship with that dealership because my brother that bought two or three Cadillacs from that same dealership decided to have a bit of an argument with him, and they said because I'm family, they don't want to do anything with me. And I said, "Wow, I don't think I'll ever buy a Cadillac again." Now, the teams that I do have are excellent. It's just they put a bitter taste in my mouth. I think the vehicle is great. I actually really like Cadillac. Cadillac and Lincoln were kind of my favorite. I owned one of each at the same time, but the dealership experience just really said made it was an easier way to trade the vehicle. Jaguar's new commercial. I feel that the company went the wrong direction in the sense of going full electric. Now, will things change? I mean, everybody else is changing. I don't know. It's changing. Even the logo, I think, was kind of crazy with that. Jaguars are not so popular in our area. They are still nice and been six. They're still nice to me, and it's been 6 months. Well, that is good. I mean, the service department at Ed Morris was great. The management team was where I started having a problem, which I did get wind that Wendy, I think she was the service manager, she left maybe a year ago. And then there was another guy, Carlos. I worked with him. He was awesome. He worked there for like 20 years, but he's no longer there. And he was the reason why I was able to get things done ultimately, because every time I went to the dealership, if he wasn't there, nobody really wanted to deal with me. You like Cadillac? Do you think they are popular? Cadillacs are nice. I would prefer a Range Rover over it. I think Range Rovers are awesome, but I think Cadillac is great. Oh, the GM has been oh, that's good. The factory forgot to install this surround recorder. Yeah, I've noticed with some of the Cadillacs now. Did you get a CT5, Neil? Which model did you get from Ed Morris, Neil? CT5V 2024. Okay, so I have noticed that in some of the vehicles they had some deletes, but they're not doing the deletes now. So I can see where they have forgotten some components because the deletes, they just stopped doing that. I think maybe 8, 9 months ago was the last time I saw one of those. So I could see that happening. It's unfortunate that sometimes you have to find those things out after you purchase, but it's awesome that they took care of it for you, especially with the CT5V, because that's an amazing vehicle. Congratulations with that. Do you like the new body Range Rover? Yes, I do like the new body on the Range Rover. I'm looking for SUV, but leaning towards the MDX, Honda. So MDX versus a Honda Pilot, a CX-90, a Lexus RX, Cadillac XT6, Lincoln. I know it's a long question. No, that's perfectly fine. So the XT6, I just reviewed it. There's absolutely no change in the vehicle. You'd be better off to go to the Buick Enclave because they got the refresh. Hopefully next year the XT6 will get it. Lexus RX, I would say get a 350F Sport. They look sporty, but they're not really like a sports car or SUV, I should say, but they have that sports style. The CX-90, I think they did an excellent job there. Ultimately, the best warranty would be towards the MDX, Lincoln, or Cadillac, in which the MDX, you can get the Type S. We're actually going to Acura next week. I almost got the MDX Type S. I think it's an awesome vehicle because it does stress with the luxury in the interior. You have a great sound system. There's over 20 speakers. You have massage seats, heated ventilated front seats, heads-up display. They do start in a higher price tier though. So if you're just looking for like the MDX or the Honda Pilot, there is a lot of similarities if you're going into more of the base trim to a fully loaded Honda Pilot, meaning the base trim of the MDX. The Honda Pilot, I would say, do like the Elite, you'll be more happy with that. And you have to go trim base when you go to Honda, whereas when you go to MDX or Acura, you can get features on the vehicle, but still it's more or less trim base. So like the A spec would be the sporty look, but it's not the sport style. Uh, when's your next BMW? Next BMW video, I believe, is today or tomorrow. I was gonna get a 2 point, then I saw the V with Super Cruise 15. Yeah, so it's funny you mentioned the Super Cruise now, they're literally putting it even on Buick. So I was kind of shocked with that for 25 models. I hope you got a good deal because 15,000, only like 15K more. Oh, yeah, never mind. So, yeah, I mean, I would go the CT5V all the way. It's going to hold its value a lot better. It's an awesome driving vehicle. The 2.0 isn't bad, don't get me wrong, but it's a night and day difference of a vehicle, and especially when it comes to uh, resale value, it's more sought off for the CT5V. Did you get a manual in the CT5, Neil? I hope Nissan will survive. I mean, like I said, I own an Infinity. It would kind of not be fun to lose them as a company, but ultimately somebody will probably buy them. Is there a big difference with the MDX Type S and the technology? Yes. So the Type S is going to be, you'll have a different suspension. You'll also have a different configuration for the engine. It's more performance. Interior is the same. Technology, you're going to get basically the technology with the MDX, I mean, with the Type S. So that's why I would go that route. No, the auto is good too. It's more of everyday drive. I mean, don't get me wrong, I drive manual vehicles as well, but sometimes we're so used to driving autos, Neil, that like when I get into a manual, I actually do like a little laugh. I'm like, oh my God, it's a manual because I see the three pedals. What years? I have a 2023 Infinity. We bought it brand new out of DC. We couldn't source one down here. And that's another reason why I feel Nissan and Infinity is really hurting is the dealerships just don't have inventory. Like I lost my Mitsubishi dealer that is in Clearwater closed, and now they're a Hyundai dealer because they had the same problems. That's why I haven't been bringing that brand to the team to the channel that much because I have two different companies, but ultimately they they're closing up shop. I have it's a two-tone, so it's silver and black. The autographs are black on the top. I believe the black is obsidian black. And I can't remember the color of it. It is fully loaded. When you go autograph, it gets every single feature. It's not matte, but we did a chrome delete. I do have some comparison videos on it. Do you think? Do you think about the four-cylinder turbo versus six? I've driven the four-cylinder turbo. I have some reviews on it. We're going to be going back to Infinity in another week or two. I It feels more performance off the line, but on the daily drive, like it's just not as good as the V6. The V6 just feels a lot more solid. I I'm not going to go into a four-cylinder turbo opposed to the V6 myself. Yes, the Range Rovers do two-tone. Almost the difference with Range Rover, though, is you usually have to pay for that two-tone like 1,000-ish dollars for an upgrade. Does it have power folding mirrors? Yes. It has the power folding mirrors, it has ambient lighting, and I have power third row seat down and captain seat configuration, and it comes standard as all-wheel drive. The ambient lighting, though, is only one color. So again, like I hate to say it, when Infinity Nissan does things, they sometimes don't do enough. In which they'll give you the luxury, but then they'll skimp on like the ambient lighting, or the massage seat only does it for the back, it doesn't do it for the butt. Just simple things like that is kind of why I feel like the brand also suffers. I don't think it's overpriced, but they have increased the price quite a bit. We bought three Infinities, and each time it usually only goes up about 1,000. Now it's like $15,000 difference. Is it worth getting a radar detector? With Waves, Neil, you can use that system and it will show you just as well as a radar detector where a cop is. I would say that's the best bet. Or what I do myself, because I like to sometimes take corners and speed, is I'll go maybe like a couple miles and do a U-turn and then I'll speed. So that way I see there's no cops in the area. That's also what I do in the reviews too. It's a little trick that I have implemented, and God bless, it hasn't failed me yet. Sometimes I'll do 2 or 3 laps like that though, because you never know, especially if there's a lot of traffic. But try those things out. Unless you're going like long distance, I would try Waves first, because the radar detectors sometimes they don't really detect that well unless you buy those super high end ones, and then you have to go into updates. It's just going to be a lot more headache than it may be worth. Yes, Range Rover, Porsche, all of those do come with the ambient lighting. So the problems that I had with the Infinity, ultimately when I first got it, it had leaks inside. So I had massive water leaks. So the whole interior of the lower bottom where you clamp the seats in and all the wiring is became a rust bucket. So they had to replace. Infinity spent over $30,000 replacing all this stuff, which I didn't do a video on because it's a very uncommon. I don't think anyone in the world has ever had this issue. And then I've had some other electrical issues since. I've had a few different issues. I do like the new Escalade. I do like the Escalade. I just feel it's a little bit too big. Yes, I bought it new, and all the Infinities I bought new. Just I don't know. Like whenever I was bringing it from DC down, because it was about 1,000-ish miles, we had a lot of rainstorms. I'm sure you remember, Neil. We had like heavy hail at that time. So ultimately, I just popped the trunk and I felt and it was wet. And then I opened the cargo boot, the the space that's underneath the trunk, and it was filled with water. And I thought, what the heck is this? So I started shot vacuuming and doing all types of things. And ultimately, like I said, everything rusted, even the pumps for the tires, like you have all that stuff underneath it, all that was rusted out. So they had to give me a new kit, everything. But the problem with it is it took months for them to fix the problem because they couldn't find it, and Infinity was giving problems. And then now we just replaced the battery. We've had the massage seats has never really worked on the driver's side. Just a ton of little issues that shouldn't be an issue. The same body style as you. Yeah, bro. Yeah, they look awesome, and the drive's a little bit more sporty, but I think they're great vehicles. Just again with Nissan Infinity, I'm really shocked with some of the stuff that they're doing and how they give some, like they don't give full luxury. They'll give a part of it, like I was saying with the massage seats. And even with the massage seats, it's not like BMW, Mercedes, and Audi where it feels like rollers. It's literally just air in chambers. I couldn't believe that Infinity Drum. Yeah, I was pretty shocked because usually when you're doing updates to vehicles, you'll do like massive updates, and they kind of did like a hidden update of changing the V6 to a Turbo 4. I was like, what the heck? And the VC Turbo 4, it's powerful. It's just one of those systems that I don't feel confident in because it adds an extra pulley system to it. My favorite German brand compact sedan, that's a tough one. So I I like the M340i, but they've went up on the price quite a bit. That now starts almost $70,000. Audi is kind of the same thing. If you go into the RS3, awesome vehicle, but you're talking 70 to you're talking about $60,000 for that vehicle. If they were in the $50,000 price point, then I would say, you know what, they're home run for me. Um, so I would say the RS3, the M340i, and then I would go to Mercedes. But Mercedes are a lot longer too. They're not really doing as performance wise as those other two in the same price category. You end up spending a lot more money. The 3 Series is nice. It's and the C Class, both two of them, Mercedes and BMW, they make a great vehicle. Yeah, the BMW screens, it took me a little bit of time to get used to, Neil. Ultimately, now that I review them, I review them quite a bit. So you get used to it, and in some of them, they're more integrated into the dash, even though they come out of it. I just wish that they would put them in the darn dash. I mean, having a screen out, I'm not wanting to buy a tablet. I'm wanting to buy a vehicle that not only has performance and luxury, but it has some technology. Yes, Porsche has a good warranty. They do. Certified to 120,000. Usually all vehicles go to 100,000. You can get aftermarket warranties that'll cover different things. Like Cadillac wheel. Yes, I think the screen configuration in Cadillac is cool, and also they do the AR screen, which BMW is doing now. Also, the difference obviously is I I feel like in certain models, Cadillac has more of a sporty feel, but then in certain models, BMW has more of a sporty feel. But then in the pricing, it's night and day difference between the two. I do like the XT5. We were supposed to review that one, and somehow we ended up getting another Buick Enclave. I don't know. Buick and Cadillac are still at the same dealerships. So I said, you know what? I like the Enclave because I think they did a great job with that. Yeah, so the XT5 and the XT6, they haven't really done much with the vehicles. It should start getting some updates, especially the XT6. I think if that vehicle would get an update, I would have probably considered that over the Infinity, but they just haven't changed them for years. I like the Porsche 911. Pricing on them are not too bad on the base trim, but they don't hold the value as well as the higher end. So once you get into the GTs, those are the ones that are more sawed off. So that's kind of the way to go. The Cayenne is good. We actually looked at a GTS before. Just right now, they've increased the price to about $140. The XT4, yeah, the XT4 it's a pretty cool vehicle. I think for value, I just saw some posts that are leasing them for like $299 a month, and when you're considering what you're getting, I think overall it is a pretty cool vehicle to have because they even offer massage seats and the XT4. I know the pricing goes higher up for that feature, but still, like you can still get features and actually make the XT4 kind of whatever you want it to be. Yeah, it's a smooth driving vehicle, and the engine, like, you would think because it's a 2.0 liter, it wouldn't be, like, smooth because it's turbocharged, but it actually is really smooth. You're right on the head on that, Neil. And, like, performance-wise wasn't too bad because it's a smaller SUV, so you could pretty much get everything you need. It had more than enough power. It would be cool if they did some kind of performance variant just so it's different, but it's not really needed. I mean, it has everything that it has. Oh, about yeah. When I reviewed it a couple weeks ago, actually, I thought the same. I told my son Issa, I said, you know what? Maybe you should consider an XT4. I mean, you can get $299 lease. It's everything you need. Yeah, so Buick, they're doing a good job too. I think they have definitely opened up their line a lot better than it was before. They're bringing a lot more attention to their line to all SUVs, but they're all unique and they kind of have that futuristic look to them as well. The Range Rovers, they drive awesome. I mean, when you start getting to $100,000 vehicles, it's always like a very easy drive. Audi Care covers all of your basic warranties. The only problem when it comes to warranties for services is the dealerships will not do the service until you're at the miles or the time. So, for instance, I bought the service warranty on both of my Maseratis, and all of which they never did a transmission flush because I never reached the miles. So then I had to pay for that out of pocket on top of I actually already paid for it because that was included in my service warranty. So some of the service warranties are not necessarily great to have, but in some cases it is because they keep increasing the price of services for things like Porsche and things higher in. Porsche, it is expensive. You're going to be spending anywhere from $500 to $1,500 a year for services. I have to. There we go. Okay, sorry, my phone sometimes plays with the Mac computer because I have everything Apple. So warranties do not cover oil changes. Service warranties cover the oil change, but they only do so many years on the service warranties or so many services per service. Meaning, if it's an oil change, they'll do 4 oil changes. So whichever comes first, either 4 years, or 4 services. And the same thing with tire rotation and etc. What does Range Rover warranties? All warranties of every vehicle cover the same thing. So bumper to bumper means it covers every single component of the vehicle, interior to the exterior. The only difference is once you start getting to higher end vehicles, sometimes you have to record a video to give it to them because corporates sometimes can be a little bit rude about wanting to fix things. I like the Defender. The interior though is, some people don't like it because of the aesthetics. The infotainment screen itself is a little bit slower too. There's a lot of glitch still with the Pivi Pro, which is a little irritating because it's come out years ago. Jeep obviously is struggling. Yes, the CEO just resigned from the whole brand maybe a week or so ago, which was kind of interesting. But ultimately, the reason why Jeep, Chrysler, Dodge, Fiat, all of them are struggling so much is because they not only had issues with the EPA, meaning the MPGs and the standards, they were paying so many fines to keep coming out with these massive Hemis that just drink a lot of gas. Ultimately, for me, I just feel like the auto industry is going the wrong direction in the sense of not trying to fix the problems with what they're doing. Instead of engineering the vehicle to get better MPGs, they're just like, you know what, throw a turbo on it, call it a day, or put a 48-volt mild system on it, call it a day. These are not fixes. These are like using an extension cord because you don't want to run a new electric wire to your TV, for instance. So when you go that route, it just kind of is irritating because you know they could get better MPGs if they just did some more research. Your car reviews, keep it up. Thank you, Kimmy. I appreciate that. They might go out of business. I don't think any companies are going to go out of business. Usually, what happens is they sell or someone takes over. It's not like Fisker. Fisker was owned by one person. When you buy into these big auto industries, they also have stock markets, so it's a lot different. And ultimately, like, somebody would buy them. So with Chrysler, for instance, the grandson wants to buy Chrysler from Fiat, just that brand, and really like Chrysler doesn't make that many vehicles as it is. They every time I go to the lot, the only thing they have is the Pacifica. I did the Cybertruck this week. We posted it. I I'm not a huge fan of Tesla. I think for electric vehicles, it's where the market's at, but ultimately, it's not something that is going to be. I feel like hydrogen is really where it's at. You have to change from the fossil fuel to something else, but you have to still be able to drive the vehicles that use fossil fuels. So if you go into an all electric vehicle, if the battery dies or you need to convert it, you can't. You have to literally replace the whole vehicle. Whereas with a car, you can replace components. That's why I feel like the hydrogen additive that can change from gasoline to that would be the best way to go, so we can continue to drive what we're driving and you get the zero emissions. I guess you would say Tesla can count as a luxury car because most of their cars are higher in pricing. Like the Cybertruck we did was right at $100,000, but usually people don't say like Tesla just it's its own thing, so like its own entity in sense. So people don't really look at it like a race car or like a luxury car. They just feel like it's the vehicle of the future. That's the best way to put it. And just wanted to ask, I'm planning to buy 300 around 2020. So the question is a used ES350 or a 300H. The big difference that you're going to go into here is all-wheel drive to two-wheel drive configuration. The sound system, I would option for the premium. Well, I would go for the Mark Levingston. I think it does sound a little bit better in the interior. The other thing to consider, if you could wait, well, no, you'd have to wait a while because 20, yeah. So I would probably, yeah, I would score 2022. They don't have a lot of changes. The refresh is going to be for 2026, and we're probably not going to be seeing that for 6 to 8 months before it lands. So you should be fine with resale value. If you could wait about 6 months or so, so that way the talks get out about the refresh on it, and they start saying how they're going to be on lots, you may save some money there too. Yes, I think massage seats are worth it. I have it in my vehicle. I wish I had it in my other vehicle, but I definitely any vehicle I go at now, you're welcome, Kimmy. Any vehicle that I buy now, I typically tick the box for massage seats, heated ventilated seats, and I prefer the second row to have heated seats. If there's a third row, then unfortunately you have to go into the Germans right now to get the heated seats for the third row capabilities. But a lot of the auto industry is starting to come into play. And most of the time, these features you can get for free once you start talking to the dealership. The key to buying a vehicle really is you don't just buy it on the spot. It usually takes me days to buy a vehicle to months. Like it took for the Infinity, I think 3 months to buy it. And they had it on the lot all that time. Ultimately, we even changed it when we were driving up to a black one, which they brought it over, but then it already had another 500 miles on it. So I said, I don't want this. Why would I buy something with an extra 500 miles and I'm getting something with 7 miles? So, just a few things to take in consideration. Don't always buy at the first dealership. Shop around, look online. You may have to drive, but even if you don't drive up there, they can ship it to you. And the savings that you have, you could probably get it shipped cheaper than buying it at home sometimes. Heated seats, because when you get ventilated seats, heated seats usually come into it. That's why. Otherwise, I mean, I do use the heated seat sometimes, like if you know, for me, I'm going in SUVs and cars. So I'm not trying to say like you, your back sometimes can hurt. And I'm doing a lot of construction in the house. So ultimately, the heated seats help a little bit. Are you going to order your next car? Probably not going to order my next car. I might just buy a pre owned. because we've been buying new. I want to go back to buying pre-owned. You get a lot more savings, and that way, instead of having to keep the car 9, 10 years and go through spending, fixing, and this and that, and then not wanting to get rid of the vehicle, I have a better choice of getting rid of it within a 4 or 5 year span. I do like the G wagons. They're a little bit crazy in the pricing, but great vehicles overall. The drive is a lot better with them now. The older variants were more like trucks in the sense of the suspension, but now not just the seats were always comfortable, just you heard a lot more road noise and a little bit more of the imperfections in the road. But I would definitely look at more of a newer one, just they're pricey. Is Range Rover having any specials or Porsche right now? So Porsche never really has specials. You just go to the dealership and start talking and making engagement with them, and typically they'll start lowering the price. When I talked to my team, he did say that people are starting to haggle now, and prices are negotiable, but they don't advertise it. That's why Porsche usually holds its value a little bit better than something like a Range Rover, because if any vehicle advertises a discount, immediately that discount is going to lower the value of your vehicle. So for instance, Maserati does like $10,000, $20,000 off every year. Well, that literally is going to come off the value of your vehicle plus another 25%. Yes, they do. I actually at Mercedes a couple weeks ago, I saw the AMG 43, the SL AMG 43. It was like 85,000. These are normally $105,000. And I thought, my God, who's making that $25,000 bonus check? I mean, that's crazy, the amount of money that they're able to just say, you know what, we have like four of them on the lot and they're old but no miles. And I'm like, what the heck, man? Lower the price. Don't take so much high commissions. But that's just my thought on that. And it's not Mercedes, it's all vehicles. I mean, ultimately that's why they depreciate so bad, is they have increased the price significantly. So usually my recommendation is if you're looking for a vehicle, you should look around this time frame. Try not to wait too much more than like a week into January, because if you keep going past that, then what ultimately happens is you could lose deals. But they're all about trying to sell something now, because if they sell it now, it goes on their books and makes it look good for them. So all sales managers will do some kind of deal. So you can haggle now. Yeah, Range Rovers don't really have a lot of specials. Ultimately, I would go to or look online and see what dealerships have a lot of vehicles on the lot, especially like when we were at Land Rover of Tampa, they had 3 or 4 autobiographies, which is very abnormal. But in certain cases, they are adding over MSRP still with these vehicles because they're not getting a lot of them from overseas. So because of that, it's making it a little bit harder to get, which in that category, I would say look at a pre-owned would be the best bet. So that way you get all of that depreciation. Yeah, I would say the autobiography is worth it. I would go that level because that's kind of like a top tier in the brand, and you can get the BMW engine in it. It's basically the SV, but it's not going to have the same power, so you would be happier with that configuration. And you have all the luxury amenities in the interior because it comes standard. There is some things that you will have to upgrade, like your wheels and some of the interior specs. And even on the review, I highlight you only have like 8 different exterior colors and I believe 4 or 5 interior colors. So I'm not a huge fan of not having a lot of choices, but that's the way they're going. So torn. What features of GV80 rear view? What features of GV80 rear and seats? So the GV80, we have a review on the new one with the supercharged electric. It's a 48 volt mild hybrid technology, and awesome vehicle. But the pricing is going high. I mean, they're in the $80,000 price now. One reason why I was happy with Genesis is the new team we have has the new dealership, so it feels like a Land Rover, which changes the whole experience. When they finally change all of the dealerships to that, then I don't see a problem with the pricing. But I have several Hyundai dealerships and I see Genesis there. And that's where it kind of irritates me because they do offer a lot more luxury. and the brand is going the right direction. It's just it's taking time to get to that point. But for performance drive, I still say BMW and Benz is the best way to go. Luxury, you're going to be fine, and it is a fast vehicle. It's just not something that you're going to be taking corners on. And I just feel like if you want that fun unlocked, you kind of have to go that route, especially for like the SUV wise. Doing BMW. Has it always been like this? So Range Rover, I did touch bases with it before. They used to source BMW engines, and then they went to doing their own engines, and now they're sourcing on some models the BMW engine as well. It's good that they're doing that because it's a pretty solid engine, and they're also using ZF 8-speed automatic transmissions, which are solid because they never have problems. So ultimately, it's making the car a little bit more bulletproof if you are going into a Range Rover. The problems that ultimately arise though is still with the suspension components. Those typically go bad anywhere from 40 to 60,000 miles. Almost 100% go bad at the 100,000 mile area. And then some of the mechanics in the interior, I've had it where the third row seats where I'm pushing the electrics and the seat mechanism stops working. But these are components that are in all vehicles. Like it's literally the same as Mercedes motor for those power seat adjustments. Window stick for engine, said Germany. Yes. Yeah. Um, a lot of companies, like I said, they're sourcing out parts from other companies. It just makes sense. Even Honda is doing it with their EVs, using platforms in pretty much the whole vehicle, not the whole vehicle, but for lack of better terms, of GMC and Chevy. It just makes sense when you're doing certain vehicles to source other automotive industries so that way you get your feet wet with it and see if it goes further instead of spending and doing all this engineering and then it goes nowhere and you end up canceling the trim. Why doesn't have it first? Huh? So the Range Rover has third row seats now. Yes, you can get the Range Rover with third row seats or not. It's an option. It's not a standard feature. Um, I think it's cool that Range Rover is offering that now because it, puts more competition onto other third row luxury vehicles. But once you start getting into these bigger luxury vehicles, almost all of them are third row. So it's kind of a no-brainer. Why wouldn't they have offered it before? I love the short wheelbase the most. Yeah, if I was doing a Range Rover, I'd probably do the smaller or the short wheelbase, so it's not as long. The vehicle is already wide and it's tall. Dynamically speaking, you can feel it being a little bit like boaty whenever you're taking bins on the road, but overall, it's very luxurious and very stylish of a vehicle. One more question. GLE 63 has a better ride. So the question is the GLE 63 better ride quality than the X5M? Why do reviewers, even me, recommend the X5M? So the X5M is kind of like not just the sweet spot, but it unlocks so much fun. When you go into the GLE 63, you don't feel it as much. It's so smooth of a vehicle and it's more quiet. So I guess you could say it's more tamed. And when you're looking for to get all that performance, you kind of want to hear the exhaust a little bit louder. You want to feel it more of a ridge in the ride. So when you're taking the bins, you're locked to the seat, but the car is literally like perfect weight distribution. So the ultimate drive to it is a lot more superior in that sense. But for like ownership wise, if you're not really a person that's taking a lot of turns and whatnot, you're just driving straight roads. I think the GLE 63 is great, but then you got to also consider the price. You're paying about 30 grand more going into the GLE opposed to the X5M. So the services is cheaper on BMW. It's cheaper to buy, and you have a little bit more of a fun factor in the vehicle. You're welcome. Uh, so Range Rover quality, I mean, all vehicles I feel have some I don't really like a lot of the quality in a lot of the vehicles now. I feel like they're just going computer based, so you can see problems arising in code. Not sensor. Well, sensors going bad. They're putting sensors everywhere. They put them all over the seats. They put them on the seat belts. They're putting so much plastic amenities that ultimately, even if the quality of the vehicle is getting better, because of all this computer stuff, it's not as good as it should be. And that's kind of disappointing because if you're looking at longevity, computer stuff, usually you have to do a lot of updates and sensors go bad. So if they didn't put all these sensors, then yes, I feel the quality would be a lot better. But they just have way too many sensors in the vehicles now that they do go bad and they're very expensive when they go bad. And then you also have them where it looks like they went bad, you replace it, and it wasn't that sensor. Is a fully loaded A3 a good car since the S3 is slightly too expensive? I want the S3, but the only thing when you're going to Audi and you're getting the A's instead of the S's, the depreciation, you will feel it a little bit more so in the sense of resale. The S and the RS are the main ones to go to. The ride is going to be a little bit more smooth than the A, but when you go into the S, so like an A3 to an S3, it's going to be a night and day difference in drive. You can tune things, but you also change a lot when you're going into the S3. So again, this is towards the end of the year, so maybe try to work a deal because they are starting to haggle a little bit more. So you might be able to score one. Look online and see how many is in the whole United States, and then try to zero in to where you can find one that might have two on a lot, which I know it's hard to find it, but I'm sure they may have them now. First time here. Thank you for your time today. I appreciate all of your content. No, thank you very much, Ryan. I appreciate that. And have a happy holiday as well, and Merry Christmas to you. I have a 2024, and I agree with everything. Yeah, that it's just too many dang sensors on these damn vehicles. It's sad to say that they really need to just make them a little bit less with that, so that way the vehicle can last longer. Great vehicles, Range Rover, the autobiography. This person, we have a PHEV, which is awesome, but I've seen them where the actual battery was dead and they couldn't even get the battery for like 6 to 8 months, which I was just shocked about. Yeah, you're welcome, Michael. You literally have my dream car. Oh, yeah, Range Rovers. I mean, great vehicles, like I was saying, just with all the automotive industry, instead of looking at engineering the engine better to make it for all of us to enjoy more driving and better MPGs, all they're doing is technology. And I mean, if I want technology, I'll go out and buy a new computer like I did. I'm not going to want a new computer system in my car. I just want the car to function with performance, with luxury, and styling on the exterior so it looks amazing whenever I take it somewhere. And I feel like car companies are not going that route. They're just like, you know what? We'll just put Apple CarPlay, Android Auto. We'll do it wirelessly. Oh, we'll give you 5G. 5G, where do you get 5G in the US? Like hardly ever you get it says 5G and your phone's going in circles. I love the old school feel of the SQ7, but the shine, yeah. The interior of the SQ7, I know all the gloss black aesthetics, and it's all like plastic, and you're already at a higher MSRP. You're right at $100,000. It's an awesome vehicle. I thought about purchasing it, but for some reason, people don't really want the SQ7 as much as the SQ8. That's why if you get them on the used car side, you have a huge discount. So it is something to consider, unless you need the third row, because the third row is actually really tight. It's one of the most, it's like you're sitting in a cubicle. I mean, you're almost like this, especially if you're tall like me. I like the SQ8. Just the issue we have, because we're considering to trade the Infinity, but we're still waiting to see what they're finalizing on, whether they're going to do the buyback or just give us money on it, is when you go SQ8 or RSQ8, it's especially if you go used, like just with 3,000 miles, because you can find them like that in brand new, basically condition. They're only maybe $10,000-$15,000 difference. So when you're at that price, would you go RSQ8 or SQ8? I mean, I would probably go the RSQ8 because you get all the performance out of it. Yeah, but again, excellent vehicles. Um, Yeah, the SQ8, I mean, it's a 500 horsepower. I mean, it's fast. It does everything it needs to do. You can get 23-inch wheels on them now. Interior is cool. And when you go from SQ7 to SQ8, another difference is you have power sunshades in the rear. I thought that was just crazy. I actually did a comparison review. It's going to be coming out soon. And I was like, man, what the heck? They're like, you're paying more for the SQ8, but still, like, give us the same stuff. You know what I mean? The wheels are cool. It's not the SQ8 is not going to be fast like the Urus. You have to go RSQ8, and then it's maybe 2 to 3 tenths of a second slower on a 0 to 60, which is not a huge difference. And again, when you're getting a performance vehicle, 99.9% of the people never take them on the track, which is sad. But putting that in perspective, if you're going light to light, doesn't make sense if it's a few tenths of a second different 0 to 60 because you're literally going to be still bumper to bumper unless the person didn't take off correctly whenever they're flooring it. Yeah, I mean, the RSQ8 is so another thing also to take in consideration is all of these performance vehicles, especially the Germans, they do not give the correct specs. So they'll say 500 horsepower. If you do a dyno, you might see that it's 510 or 520 or 4. It's never less, it's always more. Now I know it's not a huge difference in a 0 to 60 time, but giving that extra power will alter the 0 to 60, and they even go the same route with that too. So with the 0 to 60, they'll say something like, oh, it's 3.6 or 3.7 seconds. Yes, you could probably get it 3.4 or 3.2 seconds. It really depends on a lot of different things. Ultimately, again, they do this because lawsuit world. I mean, you saw Volkswagen had the biggest lawsuit for diesel. I don't think they want to get sued because of MPGs now. That's why they lie about those numbers. They're never the same, or the performance numbers. And then the person says, oh, I have less or more. So they just do like an average. The Cayenne Turbo, they are popular, very well, they're not popular on the road. They're popular with people that want them, but they're expensive. So, can you go get the dog? Luna's outside running. She got out of the fence. She's been running. Sorry, one of my chows broke through the fence and trying to get some people to get her before we lose one of our animals. I would do a certified Cayenne Turbo. I think you would be fine with that. You're going to get an extra year warranty. And when you start going into Porsche, the reason why I haven't scored or bought an Audi is the service from Porsche to Audi is going to be 9-day difference, which the drive to Audis are awesome. And I actually really like Audis. Like I've been considering for years to buy either an RS7 or RSQ8. But then when I go to service, they're saying, oh, you got to wait at the service department for, to do this service and that service. I don't wait with an Infinity. So why would I do that with a much more expensive vehicle? But with Porsche, you don't have that. You have an oil change, they'll flatbed your car to the dealership. That's crazy. That's why, like, when you're reviewing these vehicles, sometimes, dealerships, they don't really say it to me, but when I first started, they would say, oh, try not to put too many miles. And then usually I would just give them the keys back because I said, man, like, what are you talking about? How are you going to do a review if you don't drive the vehicle? But these are just those inside things that people neglect to know. And it kind of is sad because you're helping them out because they're part of your team. And then they're turning and telling you, oh, you can't do this and that. So that's why sometimes I don't bring vehicles to the channel because of the way they either treated me at the dealership or they gave me stipulations. And I said, well, I can't review a vehicle. I remember maybe 2 years ago, Ford, I said on a Ranger that the grill had plastic, and corporate got back to me saying, can you change the wordage? And I said, well, do you have a different word for plastic? and they just sit on the phone mute for a few seconds. And ultimately, I left the word plastic. Then I didn't go back to that team because I thought that was absolutely ridiculous. You can't tell a reviewer what to say or not say, or stipulate or tell them they can only do 5 miles or something on a vehicle. So that's why I'm a little bit hardcore with the teams that I pick. But in the same attribute, I do this so that way when I'm giving the review, I'm actually giving a review of showing what the vehicle can do. I'm leaning towards an Audi over BMW because so far the least price option crazy A3, but I am going to try the 3. Yes. So when you get into the S for Audi on the S3, financing will be a lot less. What I would also do if you're looking to purchase it this month, because I think you only have 60 to 90 days and then it'll hit your credit again, go to your bank or first go online and see what banks give the best interest rate. And hopefully it's your bank. Bank of America usually gives really great interest rates. And we're also thinking about adding something like this to the channel, where if you're looking to buy a vehicle, you can source it through our financing company. So we're trying to get a team developed so that way we can get better interest rates for people, because we always have questions on this, in which you'll get a better rate that way. Sometimes when you go to the dealership, they'll add points. So be careful whenever you're going there, because they can add up to 2 points. And when you're adding that, it's a lot of money. So say, for instance, you were approved for 2%, the dealership could charge you 4%. And that extra 2% goes into the pocket of the sales managers. That's one thing to take in consideration. So all you have to do on that is you ask the dealership, do they add points when they do finance? But do some homework on the back end before you go. And like I said, try to maybe work with 2 or 3 different dealers so that way you could score a better deal. Adding in finance. Yes, I think that's the best idea, because I always get asked a lot of questions on what vehicle to purchase or this or that. And I don't feel like I don't sell vehicles. I review them for a living. I'm an influencer, so I'm, non-biased. There is vehicles that I do love, and I'll stress that, but I'll still tell you that I dislike this or dislike that. And ultimately, the reason why I'm thinking to add the financing partners is this way, when people are trying to score a deal, they don't have to go into the dealership and worry about teams adding 2% or 0.5% interest rate onto their purchase, because you're already purchasing an expensive vehicle. The last thing you want to do is spend an extra $2,000 to $5,000 that literally goes into the pocket of the sales manager. In most cases, they don't even give it to the sales team, which is even more sad. But definitely BMW. I mean, the only thing I would say, look at the M340i or the M240i. Check those two out just to cross between the S3. You might be able to score a deal on an M240i, which is an amazing vehicle. Test drive one as well, but you literally have like crazy performance and you can get it pretty inexpensive. I do like heads-up display. I think that and Hyundai is actually coming out with some cool stuff. They're going to do a heads-up display that's going to cover the whole screen. I think this is awesome technology, because instead of having screens configured outside the dash, just put a huge heads-up display. I think that probably would alleviate that and maybe change some of the aesthetics so it looks a little bit more upscale and sporty. I'm currently searching for a new vehicle, cross brands. Yeah, I will say, like, there's a lot of choices right now when you're looking for vehicles, especially if you're going into performance vehicles, even luxury vehicles. They have so many different choices, and they're all kind of in the same segment. Depending on the ride, when you go BMW, that's going to be the more sporty ride. It still offers luxury. Audi and Mercedes is going to be the more luxury ride and more sound deadening. And then I would say, like, if you go Porsche, Range Rover, those are more. Porsche is going to be performance, but it still is a smooth ride. I mean, their suspension is really good. Range Rover, it drives like a S-Class. I mean, you don't feel anything in the road. I even stressed it in one of the reviews how the only difference really between the S-Class and that, which is the Mercedes, is the S-Class, the seats. So you're sitting on the seat. When you take a turn, it'll move up. So that way you never move in your seat like this. And Audi goes a step further with the with the A8 and the S8, it uses the camera in the front to read the road, so it alters the suspension whenever you're coming up onto different inclines on the road. Now, it doesn't do that obviously when you're on a track because it would make no sense. Do you like? I do like the Cayenne S. I think it's a it. If I was to get into the Porsche line, I would suggest to go into the Cayenne S. For me, I like the GTS. I feel that's the sweet spot vehicle because you have a ton of performance, but then the pricing of it has went up. When we were looking at one prior, a few years back, I'd say maybe 4 years ago. So it was during COVID time. We had one down to right at like 100 or 95,000, and the MSRP fully loaded was at 118,000. Now they're like 150 grand. And I understand like everybody has had some kind of increase in wage, but in the same aspect, most of the vehicles haven't changed that much to change the sticker price that dramatic. I have some friends that they work with some other companies like Ford, for instance, and they were telling us that when they develop a vehicle and they come out with it completely new engine, new transmission, new, whatever, it literally costs them like millions, like 500 to 800 million dollars. So they lose for the first 2-3 years of ownership. But now that the cars are so darn expensive, they're not even engineering vehicles to this level anymore. So it doesn't make sense, the increase in price. That's why ultimately you're starting to see it trickle down in price and people are starting to haggle now. The only thing that kind of isn't great is when you go into Honda, Toyota, and Hyundai, they're still at that 30,000-ish price. So they don't want to go lower because they already know that, well, you know what? If you don't buy that, somebody else will, because every vehicle is 40, 50 grand. So it makes it harder to score the everyday vehicle at an inexpensive price because there's so many people thinking, well, you know what? It's just 30 grand. It's not just 30 grand. That mentality has to go away in order for the price to be haggled. And until that goes down, I mean, I'm just now starting to see here and there people say how they get $2,500 off on a Toyota Camry. That's crazy because before you could get maybe $4,000 or $5,000 off. And there should be no reason why we don't get those prices off. But it's the mentality of the buyer ultimately. We have to change the perception. When we go into the dealership and you're looking at a new car, feel it, drive it, look at all of what you're getting, and haggle the price. Because even at $30,000, it's still too much because they can lower it $3,000 to $4,000. And especially when you're at a 30, 40 grand, like literally you could buy almost every vehicle, especially if you're looking at used cars too. So it wouldn't make sense if you're saying, well, I want to get the new Toyota Camry because I want a hybrid. That's great. But when you're going that route, you can also get a Civic hatchback hybrid as well, about 32 grand. You can get Hyundai around 20 to 30 grand as well. And then you can even go into luxury. You could get a Volvo used for probably 34, 35 grand. So that's what I'm saying. Just kind of cross shop and don't just go out and buy something and then lose that extra money that's going to come off of the resale. Yeah, like I said, Porsche and Maserati did it as well. They went up like $7,000 to $10,000 for no reason. Literally, like they did no changes. I still remember I went to the dealership and I was just shocked. Porsche, Maserati, BMW has been doing it a lot lately too. Like all of their vehicles are starting to entertain into the $60,000 margin, even if you're going into an X1, and it just doesn't make sense because if you're going to put the Mini Cooper at a $40,000 price point, then I mean, I don't know. I mean, just let us know your thoughts on that because I like Mini. Don't get me wrong. I think they make a great vehicle. It's BMW. They both make a great vehicle. It's just when you're so close to a BMW price, it doesn't make sense. What's the deal of getting a discount and going Mini opposed to BMW? Yeah, I mean, when I did the new Minis, I have a bunch of reviews that's going to be coming out. I'm spreading it out throughout the week so that way it's not like every day a Mini Cooper review. But that's why they're sitting on the lot. I hate to say it. You can't sell a Mini Cooper at $40,000 and $50,000. You're at BMW money, and now they're putting BMW at 60 to 70 and 80 grand. And I'm like, what the heck is going on? Because you can still source a Mercedes-Benz in the $40,000 price. So, like, is BMW trying to be more superior than Mercedes? Because even Audi, you can get in the $40,000 pricing, which all three of the vehicles are great. They have unique things. Some are better in performance or luxury, but they have to really figure out their pricing. It's just all over the place. Because, for instance, if I was to get an X5 in competition, it's about a buck 30 fully loaded, maybe a buck 40, depending on the dealership. Some dealerships are adding addendums, meaning they add another 10, 15,000 over sticker. They're not doing it so much now, but some dealers I have got word they are doing it. At that price, you can get an RSQ8. You can get the GLS 63 probably discounted because Mercedes will discount it. And you can also even entertain like a used Lamborghini for 20 grand more. Why are they so dang expensive? It's because less car. Yeah. I mean, you hit it right on the spot, Michael. I mean, ultimately, the prices are not going to go much lower, but the good thing is they are starting to fill up on the lots. So that's why I'm saying when you go to the lot and you see a car you like, don't necessarily disqualify the higher end car. Look at it because chances are they got 2 and 3 of them. The reason why? Because everyone's thinking it's too expensive. When the dealership has 2 or 3 of the same model, meaning the high end one, they're going to discount it anywhere from 5, 10, or even $15,000 or more. I had a friend, he just bought a BMW i4. He get the base model. I didn't know that he got the 35. They don't do the 35 anymore. So he got it for $25,000 off. I was like, my God. I told him, I said, man, you buy that, you can sell the damn thing and make 7 grand. Like, there's no way around it. He did a lease. That was how he got it. He couldn't finance it because if he financed it, he wouldn't have got that deal. But he has to keep the lease for 6 months and then he could sell it. So I said, in 6 months, sell the darn thing, make 7 grand. That's the best thing you can do. I do like the X6. I think the X6 is an awesome vehicle. I just don't like when you go into the coupes, you end up spending an extra $10,000 to $15,000 just because they cut the back. I think that's a little silly, but and it's the same thing with the X4. The X4 is actually the best dynamically speaking SUV that they make. It's literally 50-50 weight distribution. It feels like a car. I've done a few little things like we did BMW Performance. They came down and we were able to score doing some stuff with their team. So we got to race some of the BMWs. And when you're doing this, opposed to just driving it on the road, racing it, it's night and day difference and you can actually feel it. But unfortunately, you're getting these performance vehicles and they don't offer things like, for instance, Ford, if you get a Raptor, they give you a day on the track with their vehicle, which is awesome. I think every vehicle that is high performance, they should give you a day or two. I would say 2 days, but just 1 day at least for performance. We went to a McLaren dealership a few months back and we were trying to work some deals with different teams there. And the dealership actually takes owners with McLarens on track once a year. They do a week trip and they'll help you ship your car there, or you can drive like a road trip, but they don't do the police escort and you get to race your vehicle. I think these things are awesome. I do like the Ford Expedition, but the pricing, it makes sense what they're pricing for Ford because they sell Lincoln and it pushes you at like a $20,000 more and you get the Navigator, but they are expensive. And that's the problem that I have with Cadillac too. I feel like ultimately because GMC makes a lot of vehicles, they're kind of like Volkswagen. They have hundreds of, not literally, but they got a lot of brands. So because of this, it's hard to find that sweet spot in pricing in which in some cases, like an XT4 or a CT5, you can get an amazing deal. But then when you go into like a Escalade, all of a sudden it's a Range Rover. That's the pricing. And it's like, wow, how did it go from a 40 grand or a 30 some $1,000 car to $120,000? That's literally almost $100,000 in difference. Now I get it. It's a night and day in performance and bigger and this and that. Don't get me wrong, but that's a huge margin is what I'm getting at. And the same thing with Ford. They have the same problem because of Lincoln. Lincoln, I used to own a Lincoln. I think it's a great brand, but they're very corporate lately, in which you can see some of that with Cadillac too, where the dealerships want to contact corporate for everything, and it becomes a little bit irritating because you're buying a vehicle. If you need something to be fixed, just fix the darn thing. You already paid the money in advance. Well, we're going to wrap up the live stream. I had an excellent time with you guys. Let me know if the timing is good or if we should change it to maybe a Sunday or later on a Saturday so we can have a lot more questions and a lot more engagement. And like I've been saying through the live streams, we're going to be adding the membership. Hopefully that should be coming out through this week, which will give you some videos that will not be seen through the channel. You'll have to be a member for it, and we'll do different things as well with the community tab. Thank you guys very much. Have a great Saturday, and look forward to seeing you guys on the next review.